What's going on, guys? So, we almost died today. Watch the video, see what happened. Alright guys, so what's up? We've got a little bit of an echo that we need to take care of here. There we go. That's better. So we're at the gas station, just getting some gas, and this intersection right here, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, if you live in the area, is pretty rotten actually. There's 4 different streets, plus a highway entrance ramp and an exit ramp that congregate in this here intersection. So you'll see me leaving. No cars coming, no cars coming. We come around, and this guy decides, I'm going to turn. Whoops. Yep. We almost bit it. They're right there. What you can't see in the video is that it was actually probably a foot or less away from hitting me. If I hadn't have swerved like I did, and I didn't have, the wherewithal and wasn't paying attention, that could have ended very, very badly. So, with that out of the way, we're actually going to go for a nice ride through central Connecticut-ish. Well, 2 towns. So, stay tuned. You're going to hear me drinking and all kinds of other stuff through this. So, we're just going to kind of chit-chat a little bit here. But I wanted to get the bike out for the probably the last time of the year. It was super nice out today. I usually try to get out towards the end of the year because it's nice and cool and you can ride for a while without getting fatigued from the heat and everything else. But it was a super nice day out today, so we decided to go for a little ride. But I figured, you know what, while we're on this ride here, let's give you a little bit of a shop update and what's been going on lately. As you guys know, you haven't seen a ton of videos from me, and like I said in the last video, it's just simply because this is a time of year, especially in the Northeast, where we are winterizing cars, if you want to call it that. But basically, everybody neglects their car all summer long. And as soon as it starts to get a little bit cold, brakes start squeaking, lines start blowing, cars don't start, batteries go dead, tires go flat, all kinds of stuff starts happening as the temperature changes. And so we get really, really, really busy. Like to the point where I'm coming in at like noon and leaving here at 11, 12 o'clock at night, and add that into all the welding projects and all the other projects that we're doing. And, it just gets really, really crazy. And Sherry actually doesn't come in until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And she's only here 3 days a week, dependent on what her kids have going on. And if her kids have something going on, then she may not be here all week, or she may be here 1 or 2 days a week. So having someone here to film, answer the phones, edit the videos, fix the cars, build the projects, fabricate the stuff, weld the metal, and do all, that's all me. That's all on me. So it gets really, really crazy. Now, I don't complain about it because it's awesome. In this business, if you guys are in it in any way, shape, or form, it has its ups and downs for sure. There are times where I'm so busy, like right now, where there's really nothing I can do, and I'm just booking jobs left and right because I know that come after Thanksgiving, the whole month of December, January, most of February, and usually the beginning of March is just completely dead. There's literally nothing going on. And so, we try to get the jobs in here and bang them out as quickly as possible and get everything done. But that leads me into another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about with you guys is maintenance. I don't really go over too much general maintenance stuff in my videos because, truthfully, if you own a vehicle and you haven't figured out how to maintain it by now, you're probably going to need another vehicle. But maintenance is super important, and a lot of people overlook a ton of things when it comes to maintenance. And also, too, there's a lot of you guys out there that are over-maintaining your cars and wasting money. So let's go over the big things that you need to do to make sure that your vehicle is maintained. If you live in the Northeast, the number one thing that I would say to you is tires. Tires are hugely important out here. The weather changes from minute to minute out here. So a good tire that's good in the all season, rain, snow, sleet, mud, dry, ice, you name it. You need to find a tire that's halfway decent, and that tire needs to have tread on it. You can't be running around with Baldinos and expect to not crash into something. The second most important thing is brakes. And the reason why I put brakes as number 2 is because if you've got bald tires, you can have the best brakes in the world. And, you're not stopping anyway. So, secondly is brakes. Brakes are going to be one of your more overlooked items, I think. I've had customers come in here with pads falling out of the calipers because they're so worn. Rear brakes seem to be the biggest neglected ones, but brakes in general are super important. And when you guys are doing brakes, if you're doing them yourself or you're taking it somewhere or whatever, save up and spend the extra money to have the pads and rotors done at the same time. Don't just throw a set of pads on an old set of rotors, because here in the Northeast, the rotors rust, rot, they create ridges, they create, delamination of the actual rotor surface. And what you might not be seeing is that every time you throw a set of pads on the car, you end up with 10,000 miles of life out of the pad because the rear of the rotor is so chewed up that it's eating up the pads. And when you're eating up the pads and killing your rotors, you're going to be doing this stuff anyway. So you might as well just go spend the, $35, $40 on each rotor, get rotors, get pads, throw everything on there, and then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about whether or not the car is going to stop, or if you're going to spit a rotor out of a caliper, or if you're going to ruin the calipers. And just save up the money, spend the money. If you have it, spend it. If you don't have it, save it. In an emergency situation, sure, throw a set of $40 pads on the car and call it a day, because it's better than nothing. But if you can and you have the means, make sure you replace everything. And that includes all of the brake hardware. Make sure that your caliper sliders are free, because there's nothing worse than having a seized caliper that's going to eat your pads, warp your rotors, and do all kinds of stuff. Make sure your sliders are good. And, make sure your brake system is lubricated. There is special grease designed to lubricate the brake system. And that keeps the brakes from squeaking. It keeps things from rotting and rusting and getting stuck and getting pads stuck in the caliper bracket and all that stuff. So, yeah, brakes, super important. The next thing on the list is your battery. Make sure that your battery is good. And you can do that in several ways. You can go to Advance Auto, O'Reilly's, AutoZone, Napa, any of those, and they'll be able to test that battery for you to tell you whether or not it's good. Now, if your battery's been in your car for 4 years or more, I would say get it tested. If you've got a battery that's 1 to 4 years old, you should be fine unless your alternator or charging system's bad. Take your batteries in. Most batteries are 60-month batteries, which is 5 years. Occasionally, you'll get a 72-month battery, which is 6 years. But for the most part, once you're past 6 years, you're playing with fire. Or you're playing with no fire because your car's not going to start. Batteries are susceptible to extreme heat and extreme cold, and they're even more susceptible when in the Northeast we could go from like today, where it was almost 70 degrees, to tonight where it's going to be about 40 degrees. So there's a good 30-degree temperature swing, and batteries don't like that, especially batteries that are old and worn down and don't have a lot of life left in them. It's going to become pretty apparent pretty quick that your battery's no good. So there are several options for batteries too. Batteries can be wicked expensive, but if you go to Advance Auto, they sell used batteries that have been tested that are less than a year old. That would be perfect for your application. There's also Walmart. They sell a battery called the Never Start, which they're not terrible batteries. They're definitely budget friendly, but they're only going to last you about 3 years. So if you're in it and you're keeping the car, get a good battery. I recommend anything by Interstate, any of the AutoZone Platinum or the Advance Auto Platinums or whatever they are. They're basically AGM batteries. They're very good, but make sure that you get the correct application for your car, because there is a right and a wrong battery for every single car. So make sure you're getting the correct one. Now, once you've got the battery out of the way, Advance Auto and AutoZone also have a way of testing your charging system. Because if you're going to put a $150 battery in your car, you're going to want to make sure that it's charging and that it's keeping its charge and that things are going to plan. Because you don't want to put a $150 battery in the car only to kill it in 2 or 3 days because your charging system's not functioning properly. So that's another thing to look at, is the charging system. The next thing to look at is your cooling system. Now, most cars nowadays have long life coolant in them, which is supposedly supposed to last 100,000 miles. As long as the system's been taken care of, then that is the case. You will get 100,000 miles out of your coolant. Now, if you have a GM vehicle that uses Dexcool, and you have any sort of leak in the system, any sort of leak which will introduce air into the system, that coolant congeals and causes all kinds of problems, and then you end up with severe coolant loss and all kinds of other things. So you're going to want to check your cooling system. Make sure you check your radiator for seepage, check your water pump for leaks. There's a weep hole in the water pumps, and online you can find that everywhere. Make sure that's not leaking. Make sure all your hoses are good and none of those are leaking. And most importantly, make sure that your serpentine belt is good, because in a lot of vehicles, the serpentine belt also runs the water pump. So there's nothing worse than overheating your car in the middle of winter and then not being able to get out of the car because now it's 10 degrees outside or 5 degrees outside. So you're going to want to make sure that your cooling system is up to par, especially in the wintertime, because you're going to need it for things like defrosting, and you're going to need it to de-ice your windshield when it gets iced up, and when you get freezing rain and everything else, you're going to want to make sure that the cabin of the vehicle is warm. So now that we've hit all the major points, there are some minor points that I want to hit. A lot of times in the winter, cars will freeze, and that will be the locks will freeze, or the doors will freeze shut, or windows will freeze shut, or what have you. Do not try to open any of this stuff when it's covered in ice. I can't tell you during the winter how many door handles I replace, and how many window regulators I replace, and how many windshield wiper motors I replace, because people want to go ahead and rip on a door handle that's covered in ice. They want to rip on a lock that's coated in ice. They want to turn their wipers on when there's 12 inches of snow on the car. Don't do that stuff. Take the extra time, warm the car up, chip the ice off, make sure that the battery in your key fob is good so that you can unlock your doors if you have power locks, which most cars do nowadays. Make sure that your battery is good. It's not a bad idea to replace the battery in the key fob once a year. By doing that, you'll ensure that every time you hit the unlock button, it'll actually unlock. That's another maintenance item that's overlooked quite often. And then, there are various other things. Check your lug nuts, make sure they're tight. Check for any kind of fluid leaks. With General Motors vehicles, around here anyway, the power steering lines rot, transmission lines rot, fuel lines rot, brake lines rot. All that stuff, you're going to want to have that stuff checked before you go into the winter. Because again, in the summertime, you can get away with if a brake line pops and you have to come to a slower stop. But in the wintertime, when there's snow on the ground and your ABS is activating, your brake system's under a lot more strain and a lot more pressure than it was before. So you're going to want to make sure that all of your lines are good. You do not want to lose any of the power-assisted items in your car in the middle of a snowstorm. So those are basically some winterization items. All right, so now that we've gone over what I like to do when it comes to winterizing, I'd like to hear what you guys want to do. Throw something down in the comments that you've had experience with and that you would recommend to the viewers of this video, or my viewers or my subscribers or anybody, that might be a little tip or trick that you use to winterize your vehicle. A lot of us know that it's important, and a lot of us have been in situations where we've gotten stuck, and we now have a way of getting out of that. So, again, here's one that I wanted to mention. And this may sound hysterical. However, there is a difference between the air in your tires in the summer and the air in your tires in the winter. So, air pressure is very reliant on temperature. So when it's 90 degrees outside and you're driving down the road and your tires are at 120 degrees, the pressure increases. When it's 5 degrees outside and the ground is 0 and you're driving down the road, your tires go from, in the summertime, being 120 degrees to, in the wintertime, only probably running about 60 or 70 degrees. the air pressure is going to be significantly less. So yes, guys, in the wintertime, you do kind of got to put winter air in the tires, and it's just basically increasing the pressure. You know, as soon as it starts getting cold and remains cold, check your tire pressures when they're cold, set them to what the little door sticker says, and you'll be good to go. So there's my maintenance stuff. Put down in the comments what you guys think. Put down in the comments if you have anything else to add to that. I'd love to hear it, like I always do with all you guys. But for now, we're going to give you a little bit of info on where we're riding right now, because this is kind of an interesting little place. So this is a place called Hubbard Park in central Connecticut, in a little city called Meriden. And it is a place that I spent a lot of years in when I was growing up, when I was a kid. And kind of a cool place. It's got a nice big pond in the middle, as you guys saw. And they allow kids to go fishing there and do all kinds of other stuff. It's got a big in-ground Olympic-sized pool. It's got a big playground. But the best part about this place is it has a mountain directly behind it, which has a castle on it called Castle Craig. Now, I don't know all of the history, but the Hubbard family actually donated this land to the city of Meriden so long as they would put a park on it. And so they built the park and called it Hubbard Park. And now the bridge that you see right in front of me here is actually Highway 691 that runs through central Connecticut. It runs in between 91 and 84. And this is the beginning of the road that leads up to the castle. I don't know exactly how long it is mile-wise. I want to say it's probably 2.5 miles or so. And a lot of it is pretty much straight uphill. You can't really tell on camera, but we're going uphill right now, and we're going to keep going uphill even further. But it's got an upper reservoir, it's got a lower reservoir, it's got the pond, and then at the very top of what they call East Point is Castle Craig. And Castle Craig, again, I don't necessarily know the history of that castle. I do know it is named after a gentleman whose name was Craig. But I think that's as far as we get. But it is a very, very cool place to go, especially in these months where you have all the nice leaves and the trees are changing colors, and you know, you got them reflecting off of these reservoirs, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And you'll see in a couple of minutes here when we get up to the top that it is probably one of the coolest places ever. And you know, kind of still a hidden gem in Connecticut. There's not a whole lot of people that even know it's there, and people who have lived in the area for years still don't know it's there. But I spent a lot of years here with my father. Meriden's 4th of July fireworks are actually set up at the top of this mountain in the Castle Craig parking lot and fired off of the mountain, which is amazing because you can see them from miles around. And the best part about it is Meriden gets to save money because the propellant needed to get the fireworks up high enough is significantly reduced because you're already quite high. So you only have to blow them, you know, 100 feet instead of 500 feet. But the cool part about this whole area in here is that there is this drivable road. You can drive cars, bikes, motorcycles, whatever you want up this road. But there are also several hiking trails in this area where you can start at the bottom in Hubbard Park by the lake, and you can literally hike up the mountain, and there's varying levels of difficulty when it comes to the trails. And you can hike from the bottom to the top, which I've done on several occasions, and it's a really, really nice hike. So if you guys are in the general area and you want a really cool hike, then look up Hubbard Park, and you'll get an idea of how cool this place is. But you can see here, this is the lower reservoir. This reservoir actually feeds into the lake at Hubbard Park when it's low, and it also feeds, I believe, a good portion of the Meriden water supply, because as we're going up this hill, on the other side of this mountain is another pretty steep hill. It's got a water tower at the top of it, and that gets pumped up into the water tower to supply those higher streets. So, excuse me, my mouth's getting dry. I'm talking too much. You can see how nice and cool this road is. In the summertime, it's absolutely great because you don't have to worry about wet leaves. That bus got so close to me. He was taking up the entire road. But in the summertime, there's no leaves on this road, and aside from all the bumps and everything else, you can actually do a pretty nice run up this road on a bike. A lot of twists and turns and hills and ups and downs, and it's actually really, really fun. Today was a little crowded, though, which is surprising because it was the middle of the week. I don't know why people aren't at work. They had kids up there, and I don't know why the kids weren't in school, but who knows? It's Meriden. But yeah, alongside both sides of this road, there are hiking trails, and there are people that do walk up and down the road. I mean, it's 2.5 miles straight uphill, and it's a really good workout. I've actually walked the road a couple of times. At the top too, what's really cool is if you veer off to the right, and you'll see that coming up in a couple of minutes, if you veer off to the right instead of taking the left like we were, there are a whole bunch of radio towers. And you can get into the cul-de-sac where the radio towers are, and if you're into that kind of thing, and you're kind of a geeky electronics nerd like I am, you can go up there and park and take a look at the radio towers and see them up close. And I keep saying what's cool, but what's really cool about it is the fact that because you're on top of a mountain, the radio towers are not as tall as they normally would be if they were on the ground. So you get to see a good amount of the electronics and everything else that's going on with it. But that's the geeky, nerdy side of me. Kind of, going into that. Yeah, something you guys probably don't want to hear. But anyway, I hope you're enjoying this ride, because I enjoy the crap out of this ride. I have my good friend Jimmy with me, and it was a nice day, even though I almost got killed 5 minutes into the ride. Kind of shook that off and realized that the 20 plus years that I've been riding motorcycles has actually paid off in the fact that I've been able to do some pretty evasive maneuvers to not die. And that's a damn good thing. So enjoy the rest of this. I'm going to stop talking now. Those are just a few things I wanted to share with you guys. Winterization of vehicles, super important. So make sure you get it done. Find yourself a good shop. And if you're a nerd and you go to Hubbard Park, don't go left. Go right. Alright, guys. Enjoy the rest of this. I'll talk to you on the next one. Have a good night.